Welcome to the Value Builder Podcast, where we focus on real estate with a value-add mindset. Real strategies, real operators, real outcomes. Let's dive in.
Welcome, Nikita, and welcome everyone to Value Builder Podcast. Today, I'd like to talk to my old friend whom I know for quite some time, and I would like to lean conversation towards Nikita, your magic. And when I say your magic, I mean that your unique mind and brilliant mind that you have, that you're able to expand real estate, expand anyone's mind or person you get in touch with. And I really think that's your magic. That's how I see it. You describe a lot that in your book Expandability, and I think that's that's your genius lives. But also today, I would like to go deeper because in recent years, I've seen you evolve, and you leaned into spirituality and manifestation, into intention, energy, all that jazz. And I think that just as powerful as your tactical brilliance. So let's get into it, Nikita. For those who may not know you, can you introduce yourself a little bit about what you do and tell about your business?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here, Saul. Glad to be here. Yeah, Saul mentioned my name is Nikita Zhitov. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been a commercial real estate investor, developer, entrepreneur for over 20 years. 21 actually to be exact, but published author, a private pilot, philanthropist, a student of life. As far as commercial real estate, I've kind of done pretty much all aspects of real estate over the years, from developing subdivisions and multifamily communities to doing mixed-use condo projects, mid-rise, to student housing, medical offices, retail, industrial, small bay distribution centers, and everything in between. Kind of I've touched all different asset classes over the years. And for the last probably 5 years, I've been hyper focusing on small bay industrial and neighborhood retail as my two favorite asset classes. But again, past experience in other types of commercial and residential multifamily real estate.
Amazing. So let's lean in right now in expandability. So, in your words, can you explain to, let's say, viewers maybe who are may not familiar too much with the value add concept, but in your words, what is expandability? How do you describe it, and how are you so good at it?
Expandability is essentially another word for value add. You taking its ability to see not what's there, but what can be there. So you take in, you expand whether it's rezoning the property for highest and best use, whether it's adding additional revenue streams to the property, utilizing rooftops to add cell towers, utilizing excess land to utilizing basement space to add storage units in the basement or a laundry facility. Adding billboards to your properties. So any way you can maximize and increase value, not just from what's there, but it's looking at property and see how can I maximize value, how I can optimize expenses and increase my revenue, right? So that's essentially what expandability is in a nutshell. Value add, in other words.
Does any of the projects or any deals that you have done is the highlight of that expandability approach or value add? It can comes to mind like, oh, this was really was stretching my mind, and this was just like a home run. Or is there any of the deal you can highlight that really exemplifies expandability?
Well, yeah, it's expandability can be anything from taking a rental and increasing the rents, doing some cosmetic renovations to taking a property that's raw land and developing it into highest and best use and building improvements, site work, curb and gutter, parking lot, and erecting a building. It's all of this is forms of expandability. My personal preference is to do very simple forms of expandability, such as converting leases to triple net, doing cosmetic renovations, and you know, um, to improve curb appeal of a property and just repositioning a rental. But also, whenever I see property that has excess land, it could be utilized for lay down yard, or it could be subdivided and sold separately for to build something on it. But essentially, that's how you make money in real estate, is through recognizing and capitalizing on its expandability and value add aspect. That's how
Makes
you
sense.
create forced appreciation. That's how you build wealth quickly. Now you can do it organically if you just pay fair market value for the property that has been maximized to its highest and best use, and you just kind of slowly make money over time through appreciation and debt pay down. That works as well, but it's a very long way to create wealth. And we live in a especially new generations, is we want instant gratification. We don't want to wait. We want it now, right? We don't want to wait 20 years or 30 years for our wealth. We want to make it in a couple of years. So that's one way to expedite the process of wealth creation in real estate, is through doing the forced appreciation, through value add, through expandabilities, how you shorten the time horizon for your equity creation.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And I'm total believer of value add, and that's mostly what I do, and learned so much from you. I would like to maybe go a little bit of tactical, and I watched you multiple times, and just pretty much on the field, right? When we're looking at properties and how you operate, how you look at it, it's almost like you can see like, two movies like this, like as is movie, and you see right away, how this property could be, right? So obviously you've built it over 20 years, and I could see that how you see pretty much two screens, but for someone who maybe is not, is just maybe starting, or someone who is going to that direction, what tactical things they have to do, how they can train that muscle when they see it something, and would be able to see how it can be, and so that how to train that muscle, so I kind of get that skill under their belt. Do you have any advice to anyone?
So how to train your muscle, your brain, to recognize, how to activate your particular activating system to recognize those opportunities for value add or potential for profit exists. It's actually very, very simple. It all starts with knowing your market. Before you start hunting on properties, you have to know your market. It doesn't matter which market it is. The easiest to start in your backyard, but it doesn't have to be. So you start out by studying your market, picking an asset class and specializing in that. And you know everything about that asset class, everything about every single building in your market that falls under that asset class. Let's pick gas stations, right? You decide you're going to become a gas station expert. The goal is to be the number one gas station expert in your market, right? So whatever the asset class you pick. It means knowing every single owner, every single property, and when it was built, what's there, what can be there, knowing the zoning, knowing everything about who is the active buyers, who have every single property that's recently transacted in the last 2 or 3 years. So you know what things are trading for, what things are leasing for, knowing your lease comps, your sales comps, and so it will help you identify. First of all, you'll have intimate knowledge of values. Why is one thing is selling for, let's say, $200 a square foot, another thing is selling for $400 a square foot? What's the difference? Well, it's hard to figure that out if you're just looking at spreadsheets behind computer. So, but driving the properties, okay, this you get intimate knowledge. Like, okay, this property sold for $200 a square foot. It looks like this. Roof looks like that. Landscaping looks like this. I get it. The access to the property is like that. I get it. Why 200 versus this property that I just drove by and saw, and this sold for $400 a square foot. It's slightly different access, different traffic flow patterns. So you're gonna start having intuitive knowledge of why things are trading for what they're trading.
I just want to pause a little bit, which kind of one light bulb for me came up. You were actually talking, not only looking at the subject, but you're looking also at the comps, like other properties that have sold, not necessarily, right? Not only
Yeah,
looking
you
at the new
start
opportunity.
before you even start looking at opportunities, you have to understand the market, and so you have intimate understanding and knowledge. And also you're gonna start noticing trends that out of 20 properties that sold in the last 2 years in your asset class category, 12 of them sold to the same buyer, and the other 5 sold to second same buyer, and the other whatever 3 or 4 were to random buyers. So you're gonna start noticing, okay, who is active, what they're paying, what their criteria is, and then you start doing that first. Look at everything that's recently have transacted,
And I
and
want to pause,
lease and sales.
I just want to pause here. I really think it's so important, right? And actually, it brings me back a little memory when I was flipping houses, and let's say your profit used to be $20,000, $40,000. It's a small margin, and to get to that precise, if you look only just at comps, you can't recognize. But once you go and drive the comps, you're able to catch what was there, why the home sold that much. But I can tell you, most people don't do that. They just look at opportunity and they compare to the spreadsheet. But you have to go at the comps,
Well,
understand what's behind.
maybe gas stations was a bad example. So maybe we'll start with houses. Let's say you're looking at houses, right? But it's the same principle applies to hotels. industrial buildings,
Yes.
retail, doesn't matter. So let's say you're looking at houses. Why is one house is trading at 200, another one 220 a foot?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're gonna drive those comps and you say, okay, it's a Rambler. It was built in
Mm-hmm.
1980s, and again, it's 3-bedroom, 2 baths. A side yard looks like this. It's on this street, whether it's neighborhood street or busy street. You log it in. When I say log it in, you mentally create a memory in your brain what it looks like. And then you're gonna drive to the next one. Okay, this house also sold in April of this year for 200 square foot, and it looks like this. Then you're gonna drive by to next house, and it says like, oh my god, it's also sold in March of this year, but it's sold for 120 a foot, and it's nicer than the two ones I just saw, the previous two ones I saw. You clearly recognize that somebody got a deal, and you didn't. And what it's
Exactly.
gonna do, it's gonna get your juices flowing, your competitive juices flowing, and it's like somebody got to this opportunity before I did, and they got a deal. They just made, you make money when you buy, right? You capitalize on it when you sell, right? You cash out when you sell, but you really make it when you buy. So you're gonna recognize somebody got a deal, and it's gonna. So then, when you send your mailers, so when you do your cold calls, and the seller tells you on the phone, "Hey, I want $400,000 for my house," you don't need to go and say, "Oh, well, let me get back to you. Let me get an appraisal. Let me consult with the broker." Like by the time you get back to them and do some research, the deal is already gone. He already sold it to the next guy. So you need to know instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know your area so well, you're gonna know instantly. Like I know exactly all day long. This property is worth 600,000. So at 400, like maybe a deal, maybe not, but it's a deal. So the idea is that you're gonna know your market better than any appraiser, any broker in your market. And only when you know your value so well, only then I allow the people who work in my office. I allow them to go start hunting for deals. Only after I can drive with them in a shotgun in their car, in their let's say area, let's say neighborhood. And I said, okay, stop the car in the middle of the street. I point to a property, let's say point to a house and say, okay, go. And they need to be able to tell me the lot size, the house size,
Mm-hmm.
the zoning of the property. So know what's there, what can be there. Who owns it? When did they buy it? How much they paid for it? And what's their dog's name?
Hold on. So even
Okay.
like by heart to know who owns it, or they are able to look at the glide map or or whatever.
You can glide map, but you understand it does have a general profile. But ideally, the more
Wow.
about the owner, the better, so that you understand their beliefs, their predispositions, how likely they are to sell, their motivations, what they're about. So you know how to approach them. You have to
That's
know your
next level,
audience.
man.
And only because again, I'd rather them know like a 3-block by 5-block area of their town that kind of know the entire county or kind of know the entire city. To speak a 3-block by 5-block area of the town and know it like a back of your hand, better than anybody, any human alive on this planet. And I promise you, you're gonna find deals and opportunities there.
Yeah, this is gold,
And somebody
really.
tells me so ultra specialist, you gotta specialize, right? You gotta pick something and specialize in it, because when you're kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none, you're gonna get average result. When you hyper focus and specialize and become number one expert, you're gonna have extraordinary results, right?
This is gold, man.
So
I mean, and we had this similar conversations many times, and this is just I'm just hitting me a little different. Like I kind of know it, but it's so true what you're saying. It's so true,
mhm,
and most people don't do that. Just study the market and just look at the comps physical, not on a spreadsheet, and you'll get intuitive
mhm,
knowledge, and you'll build so much more into arsenal. Amazing, yeah, that's
yeah.
so true, man.
And let's say your category is self-storage. Well, you better know every single self-storage facility that's institutional grade, let's say over 40,000 square feet in your state. Know
Hmm.
every single owner, operator, how many units they have, who built it, that the original developer, or did it buy, is it owned by a fund, private investor, and you got to get to know them. You got to get to know them and be in contact and know exactly who is selling, who is not selling, who's thinking, what's their timeline. These people are going to sell in 10 years, these people are going to sell next 2 years. And when you know the market so well, then recognize that expandability aspect, it's going to be no brainer. You don't need to go read books to that. You're gonna know. You're gonna be the expert.
Amazing.
You don't need to consult with anyone on that, because you're gonna recognize it and says, okay, they want 20,000 a door, and I know all day long. I know 5 facilities who sold in 3-mile radius that sold for 35 a door. So you don't need to go consult with anyone. You're valid. You get under contract, close it, or you flip it, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
The key, it boils down to knowing your market better than anyone, any human alive.
Amazing.
And
Yeah.
knowing not just the properties, because if you want to succeed in real estate, if you're going to take the real estate business seriously, you have to take it seriously, right? You better know construction, because real estate is construction and construction is real estate. You have to know the land and zoning codes. You have to know contract, tenant landlord law. You really have to be well versed in all aspects of real estate. That's why it's never ending game. It's never ending education. I've been in it at 20 plus years, and I'm in some kind of a seminar every single week. I'm reading some type of books every single week to improve, because it's a big money sport. I'm buying a $10 million shopping center, and let's say I'm the smartest person around. I know my market. I've studied, put in the work. I've read every single book. I've taken every single course there is to know about shopping centers, and I'm 99% there. I've thought about everything there is to think about. 99% there, but I make 1% mistake. What does it cost me?
Millions of dollars.
On a 10 million, $100,000. So it's not jokes. We're not dealing. So it's like a golf pro. Professional golfers, they don't hire a golf pro because they're suck at golf. No, it's just because they need to understand that the difference between person number 1 and person number 10 is usually milliseconds, right? You just want to improve just a little bit, fine tune your game. Same thing here. This is the big money sport. Commercial real estate. If I can learn one thing from the book, it could be 200 pages. I can read it, and there's nothing, but I just pick up one idea that can help me save that 1% of my next deal. I think I'm reading that book. Of course, I'm going to read that book.
Now, one thing I want to drop here. I want to drop here on the same thing. Just I want to thank you actually for the same thing. The first time I remember I met you, probably 4 years or 5 years ago, when I flew in Raleigh, and we drove you towards your project, and mostly you were in development, and we were talking about the cost of the projects. You were just able to go on it on the specific details, how much it costs, without looking at the sworn statements. I'm like, dude, how do you do that? He's like, I just learned by heart. I just know how much is per square foot. So after that meeting, I don't know if viewers can see it, but I did create it for myself, like a cost matrix. You can't see it, but pretty much it was stemmed from that conversation, that anytime I went through the project, I kind of sected it to per square foot basis, and I memorized those. So let's say that painting the $1 a foot, sprinkler system $4 a foot. This how many, and this actually was from your account, and really just by doing this, probably for 3 to 6 months, I use the approach, and I'm going in the project, and I can quickly calculate how much the project roughly is going to be, in terms of, and I just really want to thank you for that. And that comes down to just really learning every single detail about the construction, and simplifying to the per square
You
per
have to
square foot
know every
basis.
single little detail about everything, about tax laws,
Mm-hmm.
depreciation. Time kills all deals.
Mm-hmm.
So our competitive advantage for people like you and me is that we're small. We can adjust. The key to surviving long term is ability to adjust to change. And our competitive advantage is that we're small teams where we can adjust to change versus big companies, big funds, and institutions. If you look at Fortune, 500 companies that were around in 1980, I think less than 10 of them are still around. Why did somebody like BlackBerry go out of business? They controlled the market on cell phones. Why did Kodak lose, their market share on photography? They just couldn't adapt to change quick enough. So, Blockbuster, same story. So, and ability to move quickly is you have to know your thing. Like, instead of going and waiting for 6 weeks to get contractor estimates on what the sprinkler system is going to cost, and you have to look and study enough of that, where when you're looking at the project, it's okay, I know exactly what I can put together a budget in 5 minutes, what it's going to cost me to remodel. But again, when you're starting out, unless you've done a lot of it, construction always usually takes longer than you think and costs more
And
than
more
you think.
expensive, yeah.
And more expensive than you think, yes. So whatever you think the budget is, especially if you're less than 20 deals in it, whatever you think your construction budget, just double it and add $100,000 to it, and that should be a safe number.
I want to add here. I reviewed. I'm writing a newsletter every single week, and I've forced right now to see what happened 4 years ago, how we projected. I would say 95% of our projects were like this. No, we were all off 100% off the construction. We costed more. It took longer, but at the same time, our NOI was higher. It's what the inflation, meaning we're able to command high rents. So that saved us. I don't know how do you see that on your project, but that's what I saw probably in the last 4 years, almost on every single our project.
Yeah, market. Yeah, you were saved by the market keeping up with the rising construction costs, and you underestimated your timelines and your budget. So you were spared,
Yeah.
but we're in a different market now. You may not be spared this time around. So I would just recommend, doing more, you know, being more conservative. Usually I look at the spectrum, especially when it comes to development. I don't really do much development these days, but I look at the best case scenario, I look worst case scenario, and then there is most likely. And underwrite my portfolio, my performance somewhere between worst case and most likely. I'll underwrite it somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, actually, the similar approach I heard yesterday from Fernando Angelucci, the same thing. He dims down. Actually, he dims down a little bit even in the most likely scenario when he when he sends out capital raise. He has very optimistic, very negative, and most likely he dims down a little bit. Most likely, to whatever he sends out to investors. Very similar approach to what you do. Amazing. Man, you're just dropping all the gold.
Yeah, but it's always like the number one rule of real estate, of course, is always location.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look back at the history and looking at projects failing, it's usually it could be a great location but incompetent pilot of the ship, right? Or it's a very competent pilot but wrong location.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever you have a competent pilot and a good location, it's really hard to lose money in real estate. And also, you don't lose assets by paying too much or by losing a tenant. You only lose assets by over leveraging. So that's the only way you can lose money. You lose an asset if you owe somebody money on it. So the goal is to get the free and clear scenario as quickly as possible. That's why I like properties that it has multiple components. Let's say it's could be a park of 5 buildings, but I underwrite the deals in a way that try to do it like, okay, can I sell 3 buildings, buy it in a package, right? But can I sell 3 buildings, ended up with these 2 free and clear, right? Or can I sell half of the property and end up the other half free and clear? So I like multi-component properties that have multiple things to it that I have flexibility. Let's say it's a shopping center with multiple out parcels, right? Like, okay, can I de-risk it, deleverage it? I'm buying the whole thing in a package. Can I sell this center and end up with out parcels for free? Or the opposite, can I sell off the out parcels because it's quicker, and end up with this shopping center for free? Or on a free roll, or at least with no debt, minimum debt. So I like those scenarios where I can get something for free.
Do you have any suggestions, or do you create any strategies? Let's say, if you carve out some assets for free and they're free and clear, is there any way that you're putting them shielding from the rest of the portfolio, from personal guarantees? Do you think are there any strategies easy to implement like that?
If you own a free and clear, there's no personal guarantees, owe money to anybody.
Yeah,
And
but let's
yes,
say if
you
your
can,
if your portfolio goes sideways, even if it's not cross collateralized, you kind of putting in danger that free and clear asset because of the personal
if you
guarantees.
have deficiency judgments against you, sure, it could be at risk. But then if you have a free and clear asset that's really, really good and you don't really need the money for it, just, you can gift it away to a irrevocable trust. So it's a different entity and nobody can really get to it, if you do things correctly. But you have to be at the stage where you're ready, where you don't rely on that asset or its equity or its cash flow to whatever to pay for your growth or for your lifestyle. Yeah, it's like I have young family now, so I have a irrevocable trust where I started, giving away assets to that once they're frankler.
Yeah, there's a reason why they called it irrevocable.
That's right. Once you gift it, you cannot get it back.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Man, no, appreciate your knowledge and wisdom like always. And I can get enough. All right. So let's switch gears slightly to a different topic. You've been open about your journey into spirituality manifestation. Can you share with the listeners what started that?
I don't know. I always knew that there is more to this reality than we're aware of, or that we see. We only see actually the statistically the probability that we see the truth of reality is zero. If you look at it statistically, because we only see the visible life spectrum, the visible light spectrum, basically. The frequencies that are like orange, indigo, violet, green, blue. We only see the visible light spectrum. But if you look at the entire electromagnetic spectrum of all wavelengths, that's less than 1% of all frequencies that exist. Just because you cannot see infrared doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So the ether, the quantum field, that's all around us, it's full of frequencies and information. And every frequency carries information. So it's full of frequencies. It means it's full of information that's all around us. But we only using less than 1%. And we only see less than 1% of reality. The other 99% of resources available
Yeah.
at our available for our disposal, we don't utilize just because we don't see, we're not aware of them, we don't think about it, right? But once you tune in to higher frequencies and you start becoming aware of it, all of a sudden you just have more resources available to create things in a hologram, light projection that we live in. So I kind of knew, so just that there is always more to this reality than we see, and so I just started exploring things in a direction. It took years studying meditations because that's how you become aware of it, and reading different books, working with different coaches, and it was just a long journey, and I'm still on that, constantly building on it. But what I did realize is that a lot of people obviously chasing wealth. Um, I realized that wealth is a side effect. It's a byproduct. The goal should be raising your consciousness, mastering your energy, mastering your thoughts. If you master your thoughts, we think 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and and most of them we're not aware of, right? And most of them, 99% of them are the same thoughts we thought yesterday. So if we think the same thoughts that we thought yesterday, and we feel in the same way we thought yesterday, then the way you think and the way you feel creates a state of being. And if you think and feel the same way you thought yesterday, then your future is going to look a lot like your past. Your familiar past is going to become your predictable future. So to change something, you need to change the way to change your reality. If you're not happy where you are right now, if you have ambitions and goals to get to a new place, you have to change the way you think and how you feel. That's going to create a new personality. It's going to create new reality. So you literally have to become somebody else. When you change your personality, you're going to change your personal reality. So mastering your thoughts and start observing your thoughts and questioning, do I agree with it or do I disagree with it? So mastering your thoughts, mastering your energy, and that's should be elevating your consciousness should be the focus. And the more you expand your consciousness, making $1 million, so making $100 million becomes a side effect.
Yeah.
So
100%.
yeah, you cannot solve the problems you have from the same level of consciousness that created them. To solve a problem, to get to the next level, you have to address challenges,
Yeah.
whatever issues you're dealing with, from a new level of consciousness.
Yeah.
So,
And
if it makes sense in
it,
a nutshell.
yeah, I would like to just drop in here. I don't know if you know the book. I think it's called Ladder of Consciousness by Hawkins, that who is kind of describing those levels of consciousness that you can describe in a scale or vibration. So anyone who wants to read it, probably Google it. But that was interesting book. I don't know, maybe even you recommended that at some point that we read it. That was amazing. Great, man. So let me lean in a little bit into that more. I know that it's almost like a taboo in a real estate world, but how do you balance that? How do you balance between being hardcore entrepreneur, which is, I think, more like a left brain, and left brain is more logical, and also working with that new level of understanding of consciousness? How do you balance that? So for me, myself, for example, I meditate over 10 years, but I'm more less, talking about it, and you're pretty open to that. So let's say in your office, maybe with your other colleagues, how do you balance that? How do you balance that?
Yeah, you make time for it. You just like nothing happens unintentionally. Well, it can, but for me, it's very, very intentional.
Mhm.
And you just find a dedicated time to go within. To study yourself, to observe your thoughts, to focus on your energy and your and your consciousness expansion. And then again, shifting the focus where that becomes priority, and the results in a 3D material world becomes like a byproduct. Instead of being obsessed with acquisitions, I said like, okay, approach situations from a spiritual, philosophical perspective. And then it's the way it makes the left brain uh, exercises, wealth accumulation. It makes it like a game, right? It becomes less important. And when you don't give it so much seriousness, it just flows easier to you. So it's almost like developing emotional detachment.
So let's say on that note, so do you think you own your success mostly to your brilliant mind, to your ability to manifest? Which one do you think has more impact to your success?
It's both. It's evolution process. They go hand in hand. You cannot just sit there and meditate all day long, and if you don't do anything, nothing's going to change. Your bank account's not going to change. You have to combine and find the harmony, synchronize the two processes. It's both of them are. The goal is just to basically become a better version of yourself every day. If you improve yourself by 1% a day in a year, you would have a 365% improvement by just improving 1% a day. That's not even factoring compounding effect. Yeah, just the goal is to just keep evolving, keep growing, keep acquiring new knowledge, and not get complacent. One of our core values in our company is commitment to growth. Like, you better show up on weekly meetings with some kind of a commitment that how you've expanded and grown yourself, whether it's reading a book, going to a seminar, because the key to progress is growth, and whether it's spiritual, whether it's material, or whether it's reading a book or learning how taking a cooking class. I don't
Yeah.
care. Just you gotta demonstrate growth somehow.
Yeah, and it's amazing what crew you have in CityPlat. It's the last time I saw you guys enjoy Dispenser where I was there too. And I don't know how many people came, but I want to say 20. How many people came in the last event when you guys went there from your
Yeah.
crew? Like, it was a
I
lot.
mean,
Half
it's
of the
like,
office
I
probably.
think like, about half of the office have been, and I've gotten along the bandwagon. And again, we're not trying to force it down anybody's throat. We just kind of try to lead by example. Says, look, we found that those are the secrets that work for us to create abundance and wealth. And if you're gonna try to look, there is different type of luck, right? There is
Mhm.
blind luck, where somebody just gets lucky and wins whatever, $100 million. Now there is hustle luck, which is also like, hey, the harder I work, the luckier I get, kind of thing, right? You're just hustling your way to your wealth. Then there is smart luck. After a little hustle, after you hustle for a while, you're gonna start doing pattern recognition. That's what we're talking about, knowing your market, right? You're gonna start recognizing patterns. Why some things are trading for higher price per square foot versus the other things? You start doing pattern recognitions, and you're gonna work smarter instead of harder. It's called smart luck. Then there is quantum luck. Quantum luck is where you don't have to do anything. It comes to you by you doing internal work. And to an outsider who doesn't know any better, it looks like blind luck. To them, it looks like blind luck. But in reality, is you create your own reality, and it starts by you changing yourself. Nothing changes in the world until you change. So if you're not happy in the relationship, start with changing yourself. Don't expect others to change. And when you look at things from that perspective, you just gonna start noticing how the world around you changes. Actually, the world didn't change. Well, it kind of did change because you changed yourself. You just look at it from your level of understanding. We kind of just lead by example, and other people who recognize these patterns, like, you know, maybe I should. These guys seem to be doing pretty well. Maybe I should do what they are doing. And so the only difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people have a habit of successful people. So figure out what those habits are, make those habits your own. And by making those habits your own, you're going to change the way you think and you feel. So you're going to change your state of being. You're going to change, which means you're going to change your personality. And when your personality changes, your personal reality changes. Essentially, what we're doing is, we not, which has been not vocal, but we're just not hiding exactly what we're doing. Getting competitive advantage on competition, how we keep getting lucky,
Yeah.
getting great deals.
Yeah.
And some people think it's woo science, it's okay, but we try to solve other problems from the higher level of consciousness by combining known principles and laws of physics with, so we are combining essentially Newtonian physics with Einstein physics. Yeah, right. Physical laws of physics with a quantum physics to create hacks on how to succeed in 3D reality that we live in.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe right now in simulation, right?
The likelihood that we're in a base layer of reality is zero. Actually, it's been statistically proven.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, man, I really, really appreciate for that share. I think we're hitting up the hour. I want to wrap this up with a question. I remember we had those questions on the rafting trip. Those are questions, deep questions. Typically, we don't ask ourselves. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna pull one card. And you have a chance to say pass on one, but if not, if you're ready, you can answer that question right away. So I am pulling the question right now. The question is, what changes in some aspect of your life you're currently contemplating or daydreaming about? So what changes in some aspect of your lifestyle are you currently contemplating or daydreaming about? So in other words, what changes are you contemplating to do? If you're able to share.
Yeah, I'm actually just already implemented all the changes I wanted to make, so I'm kind of having a really great life and schedule. So right now, I spend a certain amount of time per day doing personal internal work and exercising, sauna, cold plunge. That's usually I do those things before the rest of the world wakes up. 3:30 to 7 o'clock in the morning.
You some 3:30?
3:30, 4 o'clock to about 7. Yes. So it involves like an hour and 15 minutes of meditation, about an hour for stretching and exercising, then some sauna and cold plunge practices, breath work. So yeah, the whole thing takes about 3 hours before I'm ready to start my day. And then, if I do the hardest thing first, which is overcoming yourself, then the rest of the day is kind of easy. The hardest thing is to overcome yourself, is to sit, ability to sit quiet, right? And then I do what I love, which is, putting together real estate deals during the day. Um, I don't find myself in any situation I don't want to be in. I don't find myself around any people I want to be in. So everything in my life is kind of by choice: where I live, where I work, who I work with, what kind of deals I do. I don't need to buy another building in my life, right? So if I buy a building, it's only because everybody comes out to the winner in a transaction and everybody's happy, and we like the partnerships that we're in. So I don't need to do a deal, do a deal, right? It's only because we enjoy what we do. And then I deliberately spend time with, my young kids, my family, my wife. And I won't change anything in my routine, and I'm not
Amazing.
really contemplating again any major changes. As far as like again, I have everything I need I don't need to make any new purchases.
That's awesome.
Personally or professionally. Again, I'm really living kind of my dream life, I would say. So
Yeah, and it's such a great
I
space
won't
to be,
change
when
anything.
you're
Yeah.
when you're just grateful for whatever you have, right? And I can see that sometimes in myself too. It's I think it's one of the best gifts just to see how much we have and how grateful we have for whatever we have, right? And instead of trying just to keep that in mind, which I think most of the Western world is kind of in that in that space where it's always not enough, or there's always a little guilt that you can get more, right? No, but if you're
Desiring
able,
something,
yeah.
desiring something creates a sense of like lack of you not having it. Like I don't have it, I want to get it. Something like I want a bigger jet or something like right.
Hmm.
So having um, desiring something actually creates a separation you away from it.
Hmm.
It creates a lack of not having it. A thought of something you don't have puts you further away from it because it comes in from the lack of not having it. When you're grateful for what you have and you increase the photon density, where you put your attention
Hmm.
is where you put your energy. So by you focusing on what you want or what you have, rather, you increasing that thing increases in photon density. So if you are worried about problems or bills or whatever, then those things increase in photon density. So you're gonna have
You're
more
gonna
of
get
it.
more
If
problems.
you're focusing on things that you really make you happy and that you're grateful for, they increase. It's physics, right? So that appears more in your life. So it's controlling your thoughts, controlling your mind, controlling and mastering your energy flow, where you direct your energy, and that's really the key.
Awesome, amazing, amazing, Nikita. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us, sharing this knowledge. There's a couple thousand people will listen to that, and I'm pretty sure they'll implement how I did implement and just knowing you. And I really, really appreciate that. Thank you again. I know we're going to be talking at some point too. Now, just leave listeners where people can find you. I'll enter in the notes about your book, so people can buy your book on Amazon, but where people can connect with you.
Probably my email, Nikita@CityPlat.com. You can put it in chat. I do have social media. I'm not really active on it much. You can find me on Instagram. You can share the link or LinkedIn. But again, I don't visit it often. I'm not super active on it.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, I'll put all those links over there. And Nikita definitely responds to the emails, and he is always here to help. Thank you very much, brother, for joining the pod. I'm looking to hang out with you a lot in Italy. I know we're going to spend a month over there. That's going to be exciting. And thanks again, brother. I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Value Builder podcast. For more strategies, stories, and episodes, head to valuebuilder.co or subscribe on your favorite app. Always make it better than you found it and keep adding value. See you in the next one.